Anna Parker stared at the polished mahogany desk in front of her fingers nervously twisting the worn strap of her secondhand purse. The law office in downtown Portland, with its pristine walls and air of wealth, made her feel desperately out of place. She could barely process what the lawyer, Mr. Harrison, was telling her. "Your grandfather, Mr. Warren Sheffield, has left you his entire estate," he repeated, shuffling through the papers before him. "The property is located near Sugarloaf Mountain." "But I barely knew him," Anna whispered, more to herself than to the lawyer. Her mind drifted to the handful of memories she had of her father's father, a quiet man with paint-stained hands who always seemed to be looking at something nobody else could see. Mr. Harrison adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses. "Were you aware that your grandfather was an artist?" Yes, I knew he painted, but we weren't close. After my parents' divorce," Anna's voice trailed off. The messy separation had left her with three grandfathers: her mom's father, her stepdad's father, and Warren Sheffield, who had become almost a stranger. "He managed to make a modest living selling his paintings in the local art community," Mr. Harrison continued. "Nothing extraordinary in terms of fame, but he was respected among collectors in Maine." Anna felt tears welling up in her eyes. "I should have visited him. I always meant to, but..." She brushed away a tear with the back of her hand. "I didn't even know his address." Mr. Harrison's voice softened slightly. "You were his only remaining heir. Whatever your relationship was or wasn't, he chose to leave everything to you." "Everything?" Anna's voice cracked. "What exactly does that mean?" The lawyer pulled out a photograph from the file. "There's a house. It's quite remote, near Sugarloaf Mountain. The property has been in your family for generations." He slid the photo across the desk, an old two-story farmhouse with weather-beaten shutters and a wraparound porch that had seen better days. Anna picked up the photo with trembling fingers. "I don't understand why me. Why not someone else in the family?" "There is no one else, Miss Parker. You're it." Mr. Harrison began gathering the papers into a neat stack. "The house is yours along with everything in it. Your grandfather was quite explicit about this in his will." As Anna left the office, clutching the folder containing her inheritance papers, she couldn't help but think about all the missed opportunities. She had always felt a vague curiosity about her artistic grandfather, but life and her parents' bitter divorce had gotten in the way. Now he was gone, and all she had was a house full of his belongings and a lifetime of questions that would never be answered. The spring air in Portland felt crisp against her face as she walked down the street, her mind spinning with possibilities. She had no idea that this inheritance would soon become her only refuge, or that the old house near Sugarloaf Mountain would hold secrets that would change her life forever. "Thank you, Grandpa Warren," she whispered to the wind, clutching the folder closer to her chest. "I just wish I'd known you better." I've noticed only 98% of you who watch haven't subscribed. Come on, guys, show some love and support. Thanks a bunch to those who have already subscribed. 6 months before the inheritance changed everything, Anna's life had taken what she thought was a turn for the better. The high-end boutique where she worked, coastal elegance, sat in Portland's trendiest shopping district, its windows always artfully arranged with designer pieces that cost more than her monthly rent. "Anna, could you help this gentleman?" Her manager called one sunny Tuesday morning. "He's looking for something special." That's when she first met Dean Morgan. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with a smile that could melt ice, Dean carried himself with the easy confidence of old money. As Anna helped him select a gift for his sister, she couldn't help but notice how his eyes lingered on her. "You have excellent taste," he said, leaning against the counter as she wrapped his purchase. "Would you consider sharing more of it over dinner?" That dinner led to another and another, until Anna found herself swept up in a whirlwind romance that seemed too good to be true. Dean took her to the finest restaurants, showered her with gifts, and made her feel like a princess. "You shouldn't be working here," he said one evening, playing with her hair as they sat in his luxury apartment overlooking the harbor. "A woman like you deserves better than folding clothes all day." "But I like my job," Anna protested weakly. Dean's laugh was indulgent. "Baby, when you're with me, you won't need to work. Just quit, move in with me, sell that tiny condo of yours. You won't need it anymore." And she did, because love makes you do crazy things, like believing in fairy tales. The first cracks appeared gradually. Dean's charming possessiveness turned controlling. His suggestions became demands. But Anna was too in love, too invested to see the signs. Then came the morning she discovered she was pregnant. Her hands shook as she stared at the positive test, a mixture of fear and joy flooding her heart. She spent hours planning how to tell Dean, imagining his reaction, hoping he'd be happy. Instead, his face contorted with disgust when she finally told him. "You've got to be kidding me. This isn't happening." "But Dean, You thought wrong," he cut her off. "Get rid of it. I'm not ready for kids, and I'm sure as hell not having them with some shop girl." "Some shop girl?" Anna felt like she'd been slapped. "I quit my job for you. I sold my home." "That was your choice," he said coldly. "And now you have another choice to make. Either handle this problem or handle yourself out of my apartment." 2 days later, Anna found herself in a dingy room in a shared house on the outskirts of Portland, her few possessions in boxes around her. The cleaning service that hired her didn't ask questions about her situation, which was good because she couldn't bear to explain how thoroughly she'd been fooled. "Are you absolutely sure this is where you want to go, miss?" The taxi driver peered at Anna through his rearview mirror, his weathered face creased with concern. The paved road had given way to gravel several miles back, and now even that was deteriorating into little more than a rutted trail. Anna double-checked the address on the document in her lap. "Yes, it should be just ahead. The Sheffield property." The taxi lurched over another pothole, eliciting a string of curses from the driver. "This is your last chance to turn back. These roads are murder on my suspension." When Anna insisted on continuing, he shook his head and muttered something about city folks. The deeper they drove into the wilderness near Sugarloaf Mountain, the more Anna's confidence wavered. The scattered houses they passed looked mostly abandoned, their windows dark and shuttered. Finally, the taxi jerked to a halt. "End of the line, lady. I'm not risking my car any further." Standing alone on the dirt road with her small bag, Anna watched the taxi's taillights disappear around a bend. The spring air bit through her thin jacket. She hadn't dressed for mountain weather. "You lost, dear?" The voice startled her. An elderly woman bundled in a thick cardigan stood on a nearby porch. "I'm looking for the Sheffield house," Anna replied. "I'm Warren's granddaughter." "Oh, old Warren's girl." The woman's face brightened. "It's just up ahead, that big white place with the porch all around, though I use the term white loosely these days." As Anna approached the house, her heart sank. The once elegant building had fallen into serious disrepair. Paint peeled in long strips from the siding, several shutters hung askew, and the wraparound porch sagged ominously. The key stuck in the lock, requiring several jiggles before the door creaked open. Anna gasped. The interior was even worse than the exterior suggested. Vandals had clearly paid visits. Floorboards had been torn up, walls bore graffiti, and broken furniture lay scattered everywhere like battlefield casualties. "God, Grandpa," she whispered, carefully picking her way through the debris. "What happened here?" The elderly neighbor had followed her. "It's been rough since Warren passed. We tried to keep an eye on things, but empty houses attract trouble." In what must have been the kitchen, cabinet doors dangled from broken hinges. Someone had pulled out all the drawers and dumped their contents across the floor. A noise from upstairs made Anna jump. "Just the old place settling," her newfound neighbor assured her. "Warren was a good man. Spent most of his time painting up in that attic studio. Shame what they did to it." Anna glanced up at the highest windows, trying to imagine her grandfather at work there. Now the space was probably as ransacked as everything else. "Anyone still live out here year-round?" she asked. "Few of us old-timers. Mostly summer people now when they come at all." The woman studied Anna's face. "You planning to sell?" Anna's hand drifted to her belly, still barely showing. "I honestly don't know." Standing alone in what was once a living room, she watched dust motes dance in a shaft of sunlight. Despite the devastation, she could sense the bones of something beautiful beneath the ruin. Maybe like her own life, this house just needed someone to believe in its potential. Desperation drove Anna back to the mountain house 2 months later. Her pregnancy was now impossible to hide, and Dean's vindictive influence had cost her the cleaning job. With nowhere else to go, she'd packed her meager belongings and taken another taxi up the winding road. This time, something felt different. As she approached the property, she noticed a man lurking near the overgrown hedges. He was tall and lean, dressed in work clothes that had seen better days. Her hand instinctively went to her belly, protective. "Can I help you?" she called out, trying to sound braver than she felt. The man straightened up, offering a disarming smile. "Actually, I was hoping to help you." His voice was surprisingly gentle. "Name's Jacob Fletcher. I've been looking for work in the area." Anna studied him warily. His clothes were worn but clean, his manner respectful. Still, she'd learned the hard way about trusting strangers. "What kind of work?" "Anything, really. Carpentry, repairs." He gestured at the house. Couldn't help but notice this place could use some attention. "I can't pay much," Anna said automatically. "Actually, I can barely pay at all right now." Jacob shrugged. "We can figure something out later. Right now, looks like you could use a hand getting settled." Against her better judgment, Anna found herself nodding. There was something trustworthy about his steady gaze, something solid about his presence. What Anna couldn't know was that Jacob carried his own secrets in his pocket. A crumpled note with detailed instructions about an icon, a valuable religious painting that Warren Sheffield had supposedly hidden somewhere in the house. The men who hired Jacob had been very clear. Find the icon, and his substantial debt would disappear. "Where should we start?" Jacob asked, following Anna into the house. "The kitchen, maybe. At least make it functional enough to—" She swayed suddenly, gripping the door frame. Jacob's hand shot out to steady her. "Hey, careful there. When's the last time you ate?" Anna couldn't remember. The morning sickness had been brutal lately, and her funds were running desperately low. "Tell you what," Jacob said. "Let me run into town, grab some supplies. We can't work on empty stomachs." An hour later, they sat on the front porch steps, sharing sandwiches while Jacob outlined his repair plans. As he talked about shoring up the porch and replacing broken windows, Anna felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. "Why are you really helping me?" she asked suddenly. Jacob paused mid-bite, guilt flickering across his face. But looking at Anna, young, pregnant, and so clearly alone, he couldn't bring himself to reveal his true mission, not yet. "Everyone needs help sometimes," he said finally. "I know I have." As the sun set behind Sugarloaf Mountain, casting long shadows across the overgrown yard, neither Anna nor Jacob could have predicted how their lives would intertwine or how the secrets they both harbored would eventually come to light. Over the next few weeks, the old Sheffield house slowly came back to life. Jacob proved to be as skilled as he'd claimed, replacing broken floorboards, fixing cabinets, and sealing leaky windows. Anna followed behind with paint and polish, transforming chaos into something resembling a home. "You're good at this," Anna remarked one afternoon, watching Jacob repair a broken porch railing. "Where'd you learn?" "Here and there," he replied, carefully avoiding her eyes. "My life's been complicated." They had fallen into an easy routine. Jacob arrived early each morning, tools in hand, and worked until sunset. Sometimes they'd share lunch on the porch, trading stories about their lives, though both were careful to leave certain chapters untold. The crash of a car door outside shattered their peaceful afternoon. "Well, well," a harsh voice called. "Look what we found." Two men in expensive suits that couldn't quite hide their thuggish nature strode up the front walk. Anna saw Jacob's face go pale. "Fletcher," the taller man sneered, "getting awful cozy here instead of doing your job." "What's going on?" Anna asked, her hand instinctively moving to protect her growing belly. "Nothing." Jacob stepped between her and the men. "They were just leaving." "Like hell we are." The shorter man cracked his knuckles. "You had one job, Fletcher. Find the icon. Instead, you're playing house with the old man's granddaughter." Anna's eyes widened. "Icon? What icon?" "Don't play dumb, sweetheart," the tall one growled. "Your grandfather stole our property. We hired this loser to find it, but clearly he's forgotten our arrangement." "I haven't forgotten anything." Jacob's voice was steel. "There's nothing here. I've looked everywhere." The first punch caught Jacob by surprise, sending him stumbling backward. Anna screamed, grabbing a garden rake from against the wall. "Get off my property," she shouted. I'm calling the police. The men hesitated, clearly not having expected such resistance. The taller one pointed at Jacob, who was wiping blood from his lip. This isn't over, Fletcher. You still owe us, and you, he turned to Anna, better hope you find that icon before we lose our patience. After they roared away in their black sedan, Anna rounded on Jacob. Tell me the truth, all of it. Looking into her eyes, Jacob knew he couldn't lie anymore. Not to her, not now. Your grandfather was restoring an icon for them, a valuable religious painting they'd stolen. But he discovered its true origin and refused to return it. They think he hid it here somewhere before he died. Anna sank onto the porch steps, her mind reeling. So you were just here to search for it all this time? Jacob sat beside her, not quite touching at first. Yes, I owed the money, made some stupid mistakes. They offered to clear my debt if I found the icon. He turned to face her fully. But Anna, these past weeks have meant more to me than any debt. You've meant more. As the sun set behind Sugarloaf Mountain, Anna looked at the man beside her and realized she had a choice to make. The familiar roar of a luxury car engine made Anna freeze at her kitchen window. She'd know that silver BMW anywhere. Dean had found her. What's he doing here? Jacob appeared beside her, his voice tense. After the confrontation with the art thieves last week, they'd both been on edge. Dean emerged from his car, looking exactly as Anna remembered. Expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, and that smile that once made her weak in the knees but now turned her stomach. Anna, darling, he called out, as if the past months had never happened. Aren't you going to invite me in? Stay here, Jacob muttered, stepping onto the porch. Mr. Morgan, I presume? Dean's smile didn't waver. And you are someone who knows what kind of man you are. Jacob's voice was ice. Leave Anna. Dean called past him. We need to talk. I may have been hasty before about everything. She stepped onto the porch, one hand protectively over her now visible pregnancy. There's nothing to talk about, Dean. Don't be difficult, sweetheart. I've got a business proposition that could help us both. He reached into his jacket. Some friends of mine are very interested in certain items that might be in this house. The icon hunter sent you? Jacob growled. You're working for them now? Dean's pleasant mask slipped. You have no idea who you're dealing with, handyman. This could all end very badly. Get off my property, Anna's voice shook with anger. You lost any right to be in my life the moment you threw me out. Dean laughed coldly. Look at you, knocked up in some mountain shack with the hired help. You really think this is a life? Jacob's fist connected with Dean's jaw before anyone saw him move. Dean stumbled backward, his carefully crafted image crumbling. You're both going to regret this, he snarled, wiping blood from his lip. Last chance, Anna. Help me find what I'm looking for. Or else. Or else what? She challenged. Dean's answer came that night. The smell of smoke woke Anna from a fitful sleep. Orange flames were already climbing the outside walls, spreading faster than seemed possible. Jacob! She screamed. He'd been sleeping in the restored guest room, insisting on staying to protect her. He burst through her door seconds later. Fire! Escape route now! They'd planned for this after the threats began. Jacob helped Anna through her window onto the porch roof, while flames consumed the stairs below. The heat was intense, smoke thick and choking. Jump! Jacob called from below, having climbed down first. I'll catch you! Anna hesitated for a split second, then pushed off as a section of roof collapsed behind her. Jacob's strong arms caught her safely, and they stumbled away from the inferno that was once her home. From the shadows of the trees, Dean watched the house burn with cold satisfaction. He'd made his report by phone before setting the fire. The icon must have been destroyed. Nothing would survive this. But as he drove away, Dean didn't see Anna and Jacob huddled safely in the elderly neighbor's house, watching their world burn while holding each other tight. He didn't see the tears in Anna's eyes, not for the loss of the house, but for the final death of her old life and the man she once thought she loved. We'll rebuild, Jacob whispered, his arms strong around her. Whatever it takes. Anna nodded, knowing that from these ashes, something new would rise, something stronger than before. The morning after the fire, Anna and Jacob stood amid the smoking ruins of the Sheffield house. The acrid smell of burnt wood hung heavy in the air as they salvaged what little remained. At least we're alive, Anna said softly, her hand resting on her growing belly. That's what matters. The sound of tires on gravel made them both tense. After last night, any unexpected visitor seemed a threat. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up, but instead of more thugs, an elegant older couple emerged. The woman gasped when she saw Jacob, her manicured hand flying to her mouth. Thomas, look at him. It's really him. Jacob stepped protectively in front of Anna. Can I help you? The man Thomas seemed equally shaken. My God! Irene's right. You're the spitting image. I'm sorry, Jacob's voice was wary. Do I know you? No, Irene's eyes filled with tears. But we've been looking for you for 27 years. I'm your mother. Jacob felt himself stiffen beside her. That's impossible. Massachusetts General Hospital, May 12th, Thomas said quietly. There was a mix-up in the nursery. We didn't know at first, but as Max, the boy we took home, grew up, things didn't add up. DNA tests confirmed he wasn't ours. Irene continued, taking a tentative step forward. We've been searching ever since. When we saw your photo in the local paper last month. What photo? Jacob demanded. The fundraiser for the mountain rescue team. You were in the background of a group shot. Thomas recognized you immediately. You look exactly like he did at your age. Jacob shook his head. The people who raised me? The Hendersons, Thomas supplied. They were given our biological son, Max. We've already spoken with them, done all the tests. There's no doubt. Anna watched emotions war on Jacob's face. Disbelief, anger, hope. She squeezed his hand gently. Why now? Jacob's voice cracked. Why after all these years? We never stopped looking. Irene was crying openly now. We have a house in Boston, a family business. Everything was always meant to be yours too. Please just give us a chance to know you. Thomas stepped forward, his eyes on the burned house. Let us help you rebuild. Both of you. We've missed so much already. Jacob turned to Anna, his eyes questioning. She smiled encouragingly, understanding his unspoken worry. We want to do this our way, Jacob finally said. I can't just leave here. Leave Anna. This is my home now. Of course, Irene nodded quickly. We'll do whatever you want. We just want to be part of your life. As they talked, Anna watched a new future taking shape from the ashes of the old. Jacob's hand remained firmly in hers, even as he began to forge connections with his newfound family. Your timing is perfect, Anna said softly to Irene. This little one's going to need all the grandparents it can get. In that moment, standing amid the ruins of one life as another began, they were all exactly where they needed to be. Construction crews swarmed the Sheffield property like busy ants, transforming the burned ruins into something new. Thomas and Irene had insisted on hiring the best contractors in Maine, though Jacob still supervised every detail of the rebuild. The foundation's solid, the foreman called out one morning. Your grandfather knew how to build, miss. Anna watched from a lawn chair, her pregnancy now in its final months. Jacob had barely left her side since his biological parents' appearance, determined to build their future together. Hey, careful there, a worker suddenly shouted. There's some kind of old well under these boards. Jacob rushed over to investigate. The cover was rotting. We should seal it properly before someone falls in. As the workers cleared the debris, something caught his eye. There's a rope down there and something's attached to it. The crew gathered around as Jacob carefully pulled up an old bucket, sealed tight with tar and wax. This was hidden deliberately, he said, examining the crude waterproofing. Anna's heart raced. Open it! Inside, wrapped in oilcloth and perfectly preserved, was an ornate religious icon. The gold leaf details still gleamed, the sacred image untouched by time or damp. Grandpa Warren, Anna whispered. He protected it all along. This is it, isn't it? Jacob asked quietly. What they were looking for. Anna nodded, tears in her eyes. He could have sold it, made himself rich. Instead, he hid it to return it someday. Then let's finish what he started. The next day, they drove to Portland's oldest Orthodox church. The priest's eyes widened at the sight of the icon, his hands trembling as he held it. We thought it was lost forever, he whispered. This was stolen 5 years ago. Such a precious piece of our heritage. My grandfather wanted it returned, Anna said simply. He didn't want to profit from something that belonged to the faithful. Back at the property, the new house rose quickly. Jacob's newfound family had connections, and soon the raw lumber took shape into a home even more beautiful than the original. Max wants to meet you, Irene told Jacob one afternoon. When you're ready. He grew up as our son, but he'd like to know his brother. Anna squeezed Jacob's hand, feeling him relax at her touch. The past months had taught them both that family could be found in unexpected places. Autumn painted the mountains in brilliant colors the day Anna went into labor. Their bedroom in the newly finished house became a sanctuary as she delivered not one baby, but two, a boy and a girl, both with their father's dark hair and their mother's determined spirit. Standing at the window later, twins sleeping nearby, Anna and Jacob watched the sunset paint Sugarloaf Mountain in shades of gold. Think we made your grandfather proud? Jacob asked softly. Anna smiled, remembering the hidden icon, the house risen from ashes, and the family they'd built from the broken pieces of the past. I know we did, she whispered. He gave us everything we needed to find our way home.